Just call my name and I'm here for you.
What am I, Jesus?
Yeah.
What a wonderful day!
Greetings and salutations, guys. Eric here with my top 10 movies of the year so far, 2024, at the halfway point. Obviously, a lot's going to change because there's 6 months more of this year, plenty more movies to come out, and I also want to mention a couple of caveats up front. One is that also things will change because I change my mind all the time. Whenever I rank things, like if you went on my Letterboxd and you saw my MCU rankings, I change them every few months. I might watch a couple movies again and think, you know what, this is swapping now. Things are malleable, opinions change. Sometimes you look at a movie again and it goes up or down. So that can happen again here, and maybe things will shift around a little bit from where they are and the spots they are right now. But the other thing I want to say is that I haven't seen everything. Of course, that there's going to be a couple things, like I haven't seen Thelma. Really want to see Thelma. And so maybe that's going to get onto my top 10 list, but at the moment I haven't seen it. And then the other thing I want to say, I think I said a couple, but there's really 3, is I'm only including things that have opened for people to buy tickets to between January 1st and June 30th. So that takes anything in July off the table, including movies I've seen and even reviewed. Like you can watch my Long Legs review or my Maxine review. You should. But I'm not including those. Those don't count. They're not out yet. People can't go and see them yet. So those are second half. Those are second half movies. So let's move on to the first half. And starting out with also the fact that I don't have Dune Part 2 on this list, and I think that's going to get me a lot of grief. I really liked Dune Part 2. I liked it a lot more than the first one, which I thought was a very well-made film, but also kind of made me sleepy. And I think the second one was better and more interesting and got me into the world way more. But I don't know. Would it be a movie I'd want to throw on all the time and check out? Is it a movie I'm going to revisit a lot? Not really. I'm still like, my Dune fandom has gone up, but it's still a middle ground there. So sorry to the Dune fans. I like the movie. It is at number 11. It almost made number 10, but instead I'm going to go with a controversial choice maybe for the movie that replaced it at number 10. Different franchise. So let's go for it. Number 10 is Bad Boys Ride or Die. That's right. AKA Bad Boys 4. A shocking inclusion for me because I never was really into the Bad Boys movies before. And yet here I really enjoyed this one. I thought the third one, Bad Boys for Life, was actually the best one yet at that point. But this one, I think, surpassed that. The level we're talking here is basically Fast and Furious at its best level, right? When just really entertaining action comedy that is just doing what you want it to do. A crowd pleaser. If this year had not changed with the strikes pushing a lot of things, I doubt if Bad Boys Ride or Die would make it on the list. But a lot of things did get moved, and so I am left with a film that I just had a really good time with. I thought that directors Adil and Bilal, after doing a great job in the last movie, really upped their game here, showed off what they can do as action directors, made me excited for more movies from them, whether it's in this franchise or other franchises. I've seen it a couple times, and I think it really delivers what you want. It's a crowd pleaser. I think there's a reason that it's kept doing well this summer. Number 9 is another franchise film. There's going to be a few. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. 10th Apes movie overall. 4th one in this reboot franchise. It's a strange reboot of a reboot, though, because it's set 300 years later. None of the same characters return. But I think it's a very solid film. Wes Ball is, definitely shown that he can kind of take the ball and run with it as far as what Matt Reeves was doing in the last couple movies, the tone, the feel. It's not as great as the last couple movies, but it's still really strong. And I like the evolution, literal evolution we're seeing of this world and of these characters, of the apes throughout. I really like how they're charting that. It made me excited for what's next. I'm really glad that this movie found an audience because I want to see this franchise continue. I think it has actually a really kind of cool, specific place out there that feels different from a lot of the other ongoing franchises. So really like this one. Number 8 is going to be Abigail. I am a huge fan of Radio Silence. I love their Scream movies. Ready or Not is just an all-time favorite for me. This is not as great, I think, as Scream 6 or Ready or Not, but I think it's another example of how good these guys are at combining horror and comedy, making both elements really work. They like it gushy and goopy. There's so much blood spilling and splashing in their films. I think in a really, we're here to have a good time way. It's kind of a ride, especially Abigail, which I think, doesn't have quite as much to dig into maybe as a couple of their other movies, and yet still has a really cool group of characters and actors and the way they bounce off each other. It's a little reminiscent of Ready or Not as far as its setting and what's going on, but doing its own thing. Also, this was a really good year for Catherine Newton so far, even though Lisa Frankenstein I had mixed feelings on. She was great in that, but she's also really great in Abigail. The whole cast is good, but I think she delivers a really standout comedic performance in this movie. And I thought that its title character was great, and that Alicia Weir gave a really great performance as this character in embodying the physicality and the fierceness of this very evil and determined vampire in the body of this little girl. I wish more people had gone to see Abigail, but that's okay. I think that this is going to be, a cult favorite for years to come. Number 7 for me right now is Hitman, which I still bemoan Netflix releasing it because they don't give it much of a theatrical release. I mean, I was lucky to see it in the theater here in LA, but I know it did not play in a lot of theaters or for that long. It was super crowd pleasing and with the crowd I saw it with. And I wish more could have seen it that way. But I still think this is the movie that really did solidify Glenn Powell. All rests on his shoulders and has him kind of playing this character who gets to put on many different faces, wear different disguises, different looks. He really shows that he, does have what it takes to kind of be that new leading man who, looks great, but also can be comedic, funny, quirky, surprisingly quirky maybe for a guy who looks like that. I think the central romance in this movie between Glenn Powell and Adria Arjona works really well. The two of them have excellent chemistry together. Really love the dynamic between the two of them in this movie. I just thought, this is kind of an old-fashioned in some ways, romantic, fun movie, but it actually has a darker edge to it that I really enjoyed. And Richard Linklater, I think, is kind of underrated as a comedic director because when he does stuff like Dazed and Confused or School of Rock, he brings his own specific naturalistic vibe to it. This one was a little more heightened, and yet it still worked. I think that sensibility really worked with what Linklater brought to the table, what Glenn Powell brought to it. They wrote the movie together, and you could really feel that fusion in a great way. And I look forward to this. Is already, I think their third movie together. I look forward to seeing more collaborations between the two going forward. Number 6 for me right now is Inside Out 2. If you watch my recent review, I talked about how story-wise, structure-wise, I thought that what happens with the emotions here are returning emotions, joy and sadness, etc., was pretty redundant of the first film as far as them having to get their way back to the sort of control center. They were not, not a lot of new ground there, but it's still really funny and really clever along the way. And it builds to such a satisfying conclusion. I thought what they do with kind of anxiety has a character. Anxiety has the antagonist that must be sort of overcome in this movie. Even though I know anxiety as a character is not evil. It's really great what they do there and how it all focuses on Riley and what this, 13-year-old girl is going through. It made that really sort of relatable and you can invest in it. And I thought that that's where they kind of kicked in with that Pixar magic and really brought it home. And it doesn't surprise me the movie is a hit. It is kind of amazing to see what a massive hit it is, but it just delivers. It's a sequel to a movie people loved, and it's hitting all the beats you want it to. And then I think really because the third act really does work, I understand people coming out of the theater very happy. Number 5, we have the box office bomb that was Furiosa, a Mad Max story. Very expensive movie that is not going to be near profitable in theaters. That's a shame, but at the end of the day, that's not our money. And plenty of great movies have not made money in the theater. I thought this was excellent. I don't think it is quite as amazing as Mad Max Fury Road is, but it is another super strong installment in this franchise. What may be the final installment from George Miller, given the box office of it. But if it is, I think it goes out, really, really solid. I won't say it on top because I think that is Fury Road still, but still showing what George Miller can do in this franchise and the energy he can bring and the cleverness. That amazing sort of mid-movie chase with the people with the parachutes is so awesome. Anya Taylor-Joy is so great as Furiosa here. Really holding the screen with, again, the minimal dialogue that is kind of the signature of the Mad Max lead characters. Yeah, I love this movie, and actually seeing it a second time kind of solidified it. There are so many things that stand out about this movie, and again, the world building Miller does, and all these little characters that pop up and kind of tell you a lot with a little, with just a few little moments. And now it's a different type of story for the Mad Max franchise, which is always reinventing itself, but this one telling much more of a true sort of saga with this woman's life story. Yeah, I think that, there's a reason that there's so much praise for this online, and I think that it'll be discovered because it wasn't seen by a lot of people in the theater over and over again for years. And I think when you watch it back to back with Mad Max Fury Road, whichever order you watch it in, I think that is going to make a very satisfying pairing. My pick for number 4 best movie so far this year is Love Lies Bleeding. Came out fairly early, top of March, I believe, this year. The second movie from director Rose Glass. And I think this one really cements her as an amazing director to look forward to as time goes on, just to see what else she's going to do. Because Saint Maud was a really good debut, but this is an excellent second film that I think does that leveling up thing you want to see with a talented director like her. I loved the dynamic here between Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien. And Katie O'Brien, it is a complete star-making performance. She's been really good in smaller supporting roles on things like The Mandalorian in the past, but here she shows that she can be a genuine star. Besides her incredible physique, she has the charisma, the talent. She can hold the screen, bring lots of nuance. She shows a lot of different sides of this character and how physically strong she is, mixed with vulnerability and also insecurity. And I loved every moment she was on screen. Kristen Stewart is great as always, and the two of them I thought had just a phenomenal chemistry. Ed Harris was great in his role, has this sort of creepy antagonistic presence as Kirsten Stewart's dad. It gets trippy and surreal as it goes on, and I really enjoyed the ride that it took me on. Number 3 for me is Challengers. I just love this as an experience. There's movies sometimes that is more about just the feeling it gives you and feeling like you are swept up in it more than saying that the narrative was, your favorite story. I really enjoyed the dynamic between these 3 characters and sort of the manipulation and the push and pull between them that we see happen over the years. But this is a movie that is pulsing, literally. You've got that music just pushing behind it the entire time with this fantastic Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score. But just the fact that it has this operatic feel to it that the music accentuates, and the fact that everything these characters do is so passionate, and the passion that they're bringing when they play tennis and then in their personal lives and how that intersects. I was completely drawn in by this movie in a way I didn't really expect going in. I mean, I was looking forward to it, but I did not know it was going to take me on this journey where I just thought that was a really cool experience. It's actually one of the only ones I haven't seen on this list more than once, and that's not because I didn't want to, just timing has not worked out. I really want to revisit this one soon. I actually really hope I can see it in the theater again. We'll find out if that can happen. I don't care about tennis at all, but I loved watching the tennis in this movie and how it was shot and the creativity to it and the adrenaline to it and just how the characters in the movie were heavily invested in tennis. And thanks to the filmmaking and the actors, I got invested in tennis and just the feeling that so much is happening here. There's so much meaning behind these tennis matches. Let's get to number 2. And yes, I am a horror guy, but that doesn't mean I always go for horror movies as my favorite of the year. But right now, I don't know. There's some that are up there. And one is very fresh in my mind. And does that affect things? It might. And that's why it'll be interesting to reassess later in the year. But my number 2 pick, and this one very surprising to me, is A Quiet Place Day One, which I just saw the other night. And then I went and saw it again the next night because I was so surprised by how much I like this movie. I really like the first 2. I mean, I think they were very solid movies, but I was not expecting this one to hit me as hard as it did emotionally. Some people have complained that this movie doesn't expand the mythology and the lore of these creatures in the films and kind of maybe explain more like we thought it might. I don't care about that at all. I just thought it was a wonderful emotional story between these 2 characters going through this crisis together. It's just about the connection between the 2 of them. And yes, this is, an area that a lot of movies of this sort like to explore, and certainly a lot of zombie movies like to explore, but I thought this one was an exceptional example of that. So yeah, this one just really hit me hard. It got me all teary-eyed. I did not expect that going in. And I love that. I love when a movie can kind of get you emotionally and you're not expecting it. It does such a great job of connecting you to these 2 characters in the midst of this Quiet Place prequel scenario. But let's shift to number 1. And guess what? It's another prequel. Funny, prequels get maligned a lot, just as like unnecessary, and what are we even doing here when we go to the prequel? And yet my two favorite movies of the year right now are prequels. Unexpected, but hey, when it works, it works. So my number one movie of the year at the moment is The First Omen, and this one I feel very confident about. I saw The First Omen 5 times in the theater. I'm a little sad I didn't see it 6, 666. But yeah, again, zero expectations. I really admire the original Omen, but I'm not a mega fan, and certainly there was no reason to think that this movie, this prequel to the Omen that they were doing, was going to stand out in any way. And yes, its story is pretty similar to Immaculate, which opened first and is a good movie, but there's something about the filmmaking of The First Omen that just kind of blew me away. I think the director, Arkasha Stevenson, immediately puts herself on the map as a horror filmmaker to take note of. I cannot wait to see what she does next. I think other studios should be clamoring to get her to do their projects. This movie has such a wonderful mood, such a wonderful atmosphere of dread. The period piece of it all in the early 70s in Italy, I felt it immersed you in that. I felt that it evoked early 70s cinema in a cool way without overdoing it, and still feeling like there's modern filmmaking intermixed with it. And cannot say enough good things about Nell Tiger-Free. My favorite performance of the year so far, easily. And there's been a lot of great performances this year, but she is so fantastic as the lead in this movie. What this character goes through and the journey she goes on and the different emotions and beats she needs to play and go to really big places, but make it believable and make you feel sympathy for this girl. I thought it was just a fantastic performance in a movie that just grabbed me, and also had some wonderfully messed up visuals that, yes, it is funny to remind ourselves are from Disney technically, because they own 20th Century Studios now. So yay for Disney's The First Omen, going places that you've not seen a Disney movie go before. Loved it. And another movie that didn't make much money, and that I wish more people went to. But at the end of the day, it exists. And that's the great thing, It exists for me to love and for other people to love, and hopefully for other people to discover as time goes on. And I think they will. So yeah, The First Omen, my favorite movie so far of 2024. We'll see what the next 6 months have to hold. Those are my top 10 movies of 2024, halfway edition. Lots is going to change about this list as the year goes on. A lot more movies are going to come out, and that means things are going to fall off this list. And also, like I said, I might reassess some things, and things might swap places. We'll see. Let me know in the comments, what are your favorite movies of the year so far? Are there things I haven't mentioned at all that you think maybe I haven't seen? Maybe I should check them out. I'm always looking for more. There's so many great little gems out there that I think people should be looking forward to. There's things I didn't mention that I really admired this year, like In a Violent Nature. It didn't make my top 10, but I really like a lot about that. Late Night with the Devil also stands out as a movie that I thought was really cool. So yeah, I'd be curious to see what is everyone else's top 10. If you can like and subscribe, that would be great as well. All right, guys, that's it for now. Take care. Bye.